are these people?
I brought this from the Electronic Intifada. This is from Yousef Alnono, who writes how a new vocabulary is emerging in the genocide, right? Right on the 1st of July. They write, I turned yellow last year in May. My whole body dripped with sweat, and I was more exhausted than I had ever been with any prior illness. I couldn't move my body while in bed, much less get out of bed. I thought it was the flu and that it would pass. I was confined to our house in Al Nasra neighborhood in western Gaza City. At the time, we had been among the first to return to the neighborhood, and the streets were empty. My phone was often dead due to lack of charge. Recharging a phone is an errand that requires leaving the house and going to a charging station, and even if I had enough battery, the internet was frequently cut. I was bored and escaped into various fantasies of the war ending and what college graduation would look like. Then, my condition worsened. My skin turned a more intense yellow. Even my eyeballs cast a bright yellow glow. This transformation felt surreal, and I couldn't accept that this was me. The doctor at Al Ahali Arab Hospital told me that I had jaundice, and the cure was to eat better foods, especially sweets. What a useless prescription in a famine when we can barely find food. When a bit of energy eventually returned to my body, I was able to get out of bed. I went outside for a walk on Al Nasir Street and was surprised by how much movement there was, with stalls selling different goods spread everywhere. How long had I been out of it? It seemed that many people had returned to the neighborhood. Yet all eyes were seemingly on me, gawking at my sickly condition. I was surprised that my appearance was attracting so many looks. Was it really that bad? I heard a voice calling at me, Mr. Lamona, you look Regan. I turned to him, laughed, and said, yes, that's me. I hadn't heard the word Regan before the start of this genocide, but it means something like jaundice in English. It is just one of many new words that are making their way into our vocabularies. Words that we must now use to match the many unbelievable situations we find ourselves in. We are living in a surreal reality with new Gazawi vocabulary to match. Who would have imagined that we would hear or even use such words every day? So I felt it was also timely when talking about, malnourishment diseases. That Sam Husseini brings up the 35 days of fasting that UN Secretary General won't meet with Gaza's hunger strikers. So did you know that this is happening outside the UN? That there are hunger strikers that are protesting?
No.
So while he was in New York City recently, I repeatedly questioned the UN Secretary General's spokesperson about Gaza and if he would meet with veterans and allies who were on a 35 of a 40-day fast in front of the UN. It ends Monday, as well as other issues. So here's Sam Husseini doing the damn thing. I'll let him speak on this, and I think the silence on the other side is pretty fucking damn loud.
Thank you. As I hope you're aware, a group of Veterans for Peace and Allies are fasting. They're holding a daily vigil in front of the U.S. mission to the UN just across the street from this headquarters here. They're consuming only 250 calories a day, what people in Gaza on average are getting. And they're just halfway through their 40-day fast. They're sacrificing all they can to make people see what's happening. Will the Secretary General meet with them?
The Secretary General, as you know, has been traveling. We'll have to see what his schedule is like when he's here, but I will also have some further announcements of travel to make from him in the coming days. But he's traveling this evening. We do expect him to be back in town tomorrow.
Thank you. People have criticized the Secretary General's office for not doing enough regarding Gaza. And in the course of this news conference, I don't believe you said the word condemn, even as you're talking about Gaza, when another reporter asked, put a threshold, and you said, we will not starve people. We will not hinder aid, even if it's a very limited amount. But of course, it's Israel that's starving people, but you're not condemning them.
We have made clear Israel's responsibilities, and we made clear that it is because of Israel's blocking of aid that we have not been able to feed people. Regarding the killings of civilians, we've repeatedly condemned this. If you see our briefings overall, I use the word condemn often enough that I worry that, in fact, it's probably being overused rather than underused. But the fact is, we do condemn all killings of civilians, and we, again, are critical of all measures that are placing people at risk, either of having to face tremendous risk to their lives to get aid, or to do without and risk starving.
There's a systematic pattern with regards to what Israel is doing. It is moving people to the south, offering them aid there, shooting them, with an eye towards apparently expulsion. You say, what are the alternatives to a two-state solution? The alternatives are obviously on the Israeli side, expulsion of Palestinians, or a South Africa solution, where you just have one person, one vote, regardless of religion, and so on. So there are alternatives feasible, some horribly illegal and some arguably utopian, but still there.
We've made clear our opposition to any forcible transfer of the population of Gaza, and we've also made clear our concerns about any system that would enshrine unequal or discriminatory practices. So there's no solution besides the two-state solution that would be able to guarantee the long-term rights of all the population, and that is the solution that we are pushing for, even at this difficult moment.
I don't believe the Secretary General has used the word genocide with respect to Israel. Is that accurate?
I think, again, for the people who are veterans here, we've taken this up many times, but the question of genocide is one to be determined by international courts, and so we will leave that determination to international judicial bodies to make. Rather than focusing on the words being used, what we're describing is what is happening, and what is happening is very clearly and unambiguously wrong. Denial of food to 2 million people is wrong.
The U.S. is apparently targeting those judicial bodies. Is the UN taking measures to, in practical, strong terms, protect them from malicious influence?
What I can tell you on that is that the Secretary General expresses serious concern about the designation of 4 judges of the International Criminal Court
This is the
to be
longest
sanctioned
I've heard
under
them
the
let Sam
executive
Husseini
order by the
speak.
United States. While the United Nations and the International Criminal Court are separate institutions with separate and distinct mandates, the United Nations considers the ICC a key pillar
Normally they
of
would have
international
dragged him
criminal
out the
justice,
room by now.
and the Secretary General respects its work. And the Secretary General also emphasizes the importance of the basic principle of judicial independence. All right. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye, I gotta
Any
go.
update on the Secretary General meeting with the Veterans for Peace and their and other fasters outside the U.S. mission? One of them was just in the emergency room.
I don't have any update.
So did you hear that? The next day, he said one of those veterans, so he comes back the next day, right? Remember, dude told him that homeboy would be back, right? So he's now saying that one of those fasters is in the hospital, right? We just covered a Palestinian woman getting jaundice from lack of calories, right? Among many, right? You know, they've talked about sugar hallucinations and, you know, the food is being drugged. We just covered how they're using that same aid distribution network to murder civilians. So
he just got back into town yesterday. I do believe that in the next couple of days we'll also announce some further travels. But while he's here, we'll see what can be done. But certainly, you are well aware of his own concerns about the situation in Gaza.
As you may be aware, I've raised this with Haq, that there are fasters across the
next
street.
day-
One of them is still in the hospital, 74-year-old former U.S. Navy corpsman from Toledo.
74-year-old Navy corpsman from Toledo, Mike Ferner.
Mike Ferner remains hospitalized. He had a potassium crash. The rest of the fasters issued a statement. Hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza vainly try to survive on the same starvation diet, or even less than we are on, 250 calories per day. But they know that those people in Gaza, those Palestinians, have no choice. Quote, they can't recover in a modern hospital with teams of health professionals. Will the Secretary General meet with these people who are across the street in front of the U.S. mission?
The Secretary General's position on what is going on in Gaza right now has been very clear. I don't have an update to what Farhan told you yesterday in answer to that same question.
So, thoughts, Care Bear?
I mean, just the weaseling out of trying to justify their crimes and against people who actually try. And that will kind of lead into what we're going to share in our last segment regarding GJ Joe Nice. But
Yeah.
I think people are at a loss of what to do because obviously our government is not doing anything. So how else? I think now it's more or less taking things personally, and that's where we've come to, of how to acknowledge what's happening. And we saw that in the last segment with Bob Villain. Obviously they had a platform, right there giving positions, but they essentially did that alone at the cost, of their money and their money and possibly their career. Although I feel like right now they'll be, but I think that's kind of, it's not sad, but it kind of shows the lack of concern that the West has had in Gaza has forced people to kind of think like, what else can I do? Like, I don't want to forget, but at a loss of what other. And we talked about that. I think you did a segment on this. I think maybe a week or two ago. Asking or people asking Palestinians, "What do you need?" And it's valid because like you give them money, they don't, where are they going to get food? You try and get them supplies, it may not get there.
Right.
So it's like, what else can happen aside from our government stepping in to ensure that this assault stops? And that's not happening. So yeah, I get it. We're kind of at that place right now of kind of doing this. I don't want to say in isolation, but at the same time, it's like kind of reflecting on the idea of like, I don't want to forget this, but also kind of as a reminder of, what Palestinians are going through right now in terms of not having enough food to eat
Right.
when they're supposed to, or the fact that that they were given, or probably still are given, like a 200-calorie allowance. That's like a couple of pieces of bread, folks. That's nothing.
Yeah.
So like sharing in that despair with them, I think that's what people are coming to right now. So
Yeah.
and I think that even with the UN, that they're almost kind of dismissive
Right.
of it. It's sad and
Well,
not the job that you're supposed to do. Like, it shouldn't have to come to people saying, we're fasting now, like, because you haven't done shit to, or at least we haven't necessarily reported on the UN at all, but what have they done?
Right. So here you go. Guess what that you want to see what that 74-year-old does when he gets out of the hospital?
Sure.
Here, United States, have some blood. You like shedding it all over the world so much? Here you go. How about some blood? A small amount of the blood money that corporations make taking us to war all the time. No more killing. Please, stop it.
So, 74-year-old.
Yeah.
He
understood the assignment.
Sam Husseini, Mike Ferner of Veterans for Peace threw blood at the U.S. mission to the UN today. Here, United States, have some blood. He and 28 others were reportedly arrested today. He had been participated in hashtag Fast for Gaza. Most arrests took place at the Israeli mission to the UN, where a mass action was. Joe Metzler, co-founder of Service Members for Ceasefire, was among those arrested there. She has been doing Fast for Gaza outside the U.S. mission to the UN for the last 40 days. They limited themselves to 250 calories per day, considered medically to be a starvation diet, and the amount reported early this year as the average available to Palestinians in Gaza. Joy left the Air Force and became a conscientious objector, citing U.S. aggression in the Middle East and the continued ethnic cleansing in all of Palestine and the ongoing mass massacre of Palestinians in Gaza. So here is those people, right? These are the ones that have been arrested right there at Diplomat Chemists. So Sam Husseini said there was a die-in today at the Israeli mission to the UN. 28 people were arrested. So, at Alexa B. Wilkinson for the photos. One of the last times Husseini saw Mike, he was railing about fuckers killing fucking babies. Good on you, Mike. We're with you. Mike is a former Navy corpsman and an author of Inside the Red Zone, a veteran for peace reports from Iraq. Mike participated in the 40-day fast for Gaza until he had to be taken to the ER a few weeks ago. I reportedly asked the UN about the fasters and if UNSG Antonio Gutierrez would meet with him, but he never did. So, yeah. So Shilling and Farthing says 40-day long protest, and this is the first I'm hearing of it, but then why should I expect the complicit media to report it? Sam Husseini says subscribe to my writing to get that reporting. So, back to this EI article about new words in Gaza. I felt it fit really well. But the journalist writes, Gaza was not a quiet place before the war, but people got used to the annoying sounds of al-Zanana, or drones. But I don't think we'll get used to the sky-splitting roar and high-pitched screeches of the fighter planes that fly overhead. In December 2024, my friend Mahmoud and I were chopping wood for a fire. I had not known Mahmoud for a long time. He was displaced from a nearby Al-Karama area. He was forced to stay at my aunt's house in our neighborhood because his house had been destroyed by an Israeli attack. After a short time, I got to know him a little better, and we became friends. Nearby, a group of children were playing as we chopped wood, and then we heard the abrupt and terrifying shrieking sound of the jet. We covered our heads and got low to the ground, anticipating a missile strike. The children were terrified and their bodies shook with fear. They also thought it was a missile coming for us and started screaming. I tried to calm the kids down. I told them it was not a missile, that it was an F-16 that had come very close to the ground in order to confuse people and spread fear. Mahmoud said to the children, "Don't be afraid, the plane shahatat." Before that day, I had only heard the word shahat in the context of a car screeching to a halt, like when a car travels at a high speed and suddenly slows down. The loud noise that follows, that is from shahat. Now I understand the word in a different way. Every time I hear the sound of a plane ripping across the sky, I say shahatat to calm myself. I will never forget the day, the 8th of March, that would be on my birthday of 2024, that I miraculously escaped death. This was a very hard time for us in Gaza. Famine was spreading and airdrops of aid were just beginning. I decided without my mother knowing to take a risk and go to the drop site. The drop location was near Al-Makusi Towers in Gaza City. It took me a half hour to reach the site, but for others, it likely took hours. I saw people gathering and joined them to wait for the drop. It was only a few minutes until we heard the loud roar of an approaching plane. It looked like a large passenger plane, and it was flying low. The scene was incredible. It was surreal to see this large plane flying so low. People started waving their hands so the pilot could see them and drop aid to us. I didn't realize what was happening as my eyes were on the plane, and I heard someone yell, "Janahat, Janahat." The word we use the verb jana to mean to lean, as in the Quranic surah, and if they incline, janahu, To peace, incline you as well to it, and trust in Allah. Surely he is all-hearing and all-knowing. The noun janah can also simply mean a wing, and the verb form can also mean to give wings to something. But at that moment, the verb did not mean an inclination towards peace. Janah was referring to the plane's tilting in the sky when it released the packages of aid. The plane rose at high speed and then dropped the packages with parachutes attached. But there was something wrong. Why was the aid package spinning at such a high speed? I saw that it did not have a parachute, or that the parachute had not opened, and then it would fall to the ground. I looked around and was shocked. Everyone had fled and was hiding to protect themselves. I didn't know where to go, and suddenly the first one fell with a huge crash that spread dust everywhere. While I was trying to avoid that package, the second one fell on a donkey, killing it. Its owner had been forced to leave it while he ran for his life. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. I was shocked by the sight of blood everywhere. I stepped forward to where the first box had dropped and pulled a box of dates from it. Then people started running towards the box quickly, hoping to get something. I went home in shock. But the word stayed stuck in my head. Janahat, Janahat. If I hear that word again, I will start running without thinking. Closing thoughts, Care Bear? But shout out to those veterans for peace out there protesting. Appreciate them. But yeah, it's why I like bringing these Intifada stories from the pens of Palestinians. Is pretty strong stuff. So appreciate the EI as well. But talking about those stories is certainly why we're demonetized. You can scan that QR code on your screen or go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork. Links to donate are in the description below. And if you can't do that because you're one of the poors like ourselves, just like and subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let us know how despicable you find this. But otherwise, thanks for watching.